Hello, welcome back to the channel. Feels like it's been an age since I last did a video where I talked about painting miniatures and showing off what I've done. So I have been doing Epic Battles American War of Independence Revolution. So I thought I'd do a wee video and talk about where I am, what I've been doing. Now I'm not as far through this project as I would have liked. Pretty much we had a big charity Leipzig game. If you've not seen the video, I posted it the other day. And that was 28mm Napoleonics, and I spent a bit of time getting a heavy brigade finished and some other pieces done for that. So that was 2-3 weeks sort of focusing on that. But I'm back painting some epic battles and also doing some epic battles Hail Caesar. So you might have seen I've done some light infantry, which is looking pretty cool, and a finished regiment, and I've also done another British regiment. Now with my regiments, I'm doing 3 bases per unit. Now I like 3 bases per unit because it just correlates the amount of stands. They get either 2 dice for close combat, 1 dice per base for shooting, fighter power. And if I'm doing a small, it'll be 2 bases, tiny 1, large corresponding up the way. Now, I did see on a Facebook comment talking about that, how to make extra command stands. Well, because of the way these sprues are laid out, you might end up with extra standards. So, for example, if you're doing Americans, you're going to end up with some spare standards because you're only going to have 1 standard per unit. The other thing I'm looking at is often regiments had various troops detached. So, for example, grenadiers were often pulled from regiments and put together for a grenadier detachment. Light infantry the same. Maybe other companies on, I'm going to use the word secondment, detachment. They wouldn't have the colour parties your main regiments did. So that's another option. Now, I did something similar with French Napoleonics. And what I did there was just do a bit of conversion work with some paper clips and spare cavalry officers. If you go back and check out my French Napoleonic epic battles videos, you'll see them. Now, what I've also got done is I'm focusing on Cowpens to begin with. So, a couple of British commanders here. Now, I mount my brigade commanders on. These are British tuppences. If you notice as well, I'll paint the bases Steel Legion drab before I put sand and grass on, and that's just to help it blend in with the bases so it's a unified colour when I put the sand and grass on. Now these were quite nice to do. So this is a lovely figure range. You know what? Every iteration of every iteration of epic battles, put my teeth back in, has been lovely and just getting better and better. Now, because we did Cowpens, I had to have an overall commander, and the British commander at Cowpens was Tarleton. So our overall commanders, we put on a bigger base, 3 figures. My brigade commanders will either have 1 or 2 figures on. So that's Tarleton painted up. I'll put some my sand and grass on those as well. I've also, with the bigger bases, able to add a few flowers and just make the bases look a bit more interesting. Now, because Cowpens and British cavalry involved, Tarleton's British Legion, I've painted up the cavalry. Nice and basic. You don't need much cavalry for American War of Independence armies. When I get them on the table, I'll see how effective the rules are for cavalry. Certainly just looking at it, whilst there wasn't much cavalry in the campaign, I've mentioned this in another video, when they were used, that's for British light dragoons, when they were used, they had a major effect on the battle. I've also done an artillery piece. So that's the British I've done. It's not just being British I've been painting. I also wanted to get some Continentals painted, so some Continental Regiment of Continental Line Infantry, and really nice to paint up. Left them with browner trousers. Just noticed I've got the drumsticks to paint on them. Now, I have also done, this is my test strip for militia. And how I've been doing the militia is I've got a load of militia strips. I think I've got at least 10 militia strips at the moment. And I'll go along, throw green on some of them, greys, browns, just at random. And then throw a shade on, pick out the white. Again, the white you'll probably seen in the other video, the cross belts using pens. But yeah, I think they're going to be lovely. You also see there how I sort of trim the sprues, so I've got a bit more to hold on to when I'm painting. Faces as well, I'm just painting the faces white and putting Gullyman Flesh contrast paint on, brings it up lovely. Now, so this is, well, I've thrown down the base coats and I've used contrast as base coats and I've shaded it, so these guys are now ready for me to start a bit of highlighting on the colours, picking out the whites, doing faces. So you see how my base coats, I've talked about this before, my base coats are quite messy, and it's when I start adding highlights and picking out details that the figures come to life. And I've got loads with the sort of huntsmen as well as skirmishers. And just nice to zoom in. Because there was a lot of American militia cowpens. I've got some different looking sort of light infantry, maybe to stand in as Legion infantry. Some Hessian Jaegers. Now the green's not dark enough at the moment, so I'll just throw another couple of coats of green over it and then pick out the details and cross belts and stuff. Got loads of those. And there was a unit of Continental cavalry, so I've been painting up the sort of militia cavalry as well. There were only 20 of them at the battle, but they did manage to blunt a British assault and essentially save the flank for the Americans. What else have I been doing? I did start another unit of British infantry. However, I realised I didn't put command stand together. That's why they're languishing in the half painted bit. Now I've decided to use the sort of sprues with the less uniform hats. And that's because once the British Army were in the field, it was quite difficult to get them resupplied. And I'm probably going to keep more of the Americans in full tricorn hats. Certainly if I'm focusing on the south, a lot of the time when the American Army was wiped out and a new one raised, and a new one suggests new uniforms. What else have I got going on? Got some more of, I'll use the other hand, some more British Light Infantry. Again, you can just see where I get it to with a bit of base coat shading, and then I'll bring them up, highlights and details. See, a lot of painting isn't artistic, it's just having confidence to put paint on models and technique. And last thing to show you is this is pretty much a lot more of the Americans. I've got to go base coated and shaded, undercoated, ready to go, throw some paint on. But the more I do of these, the quicker I become, and I start to understand the shortcuts. I tend to do both armies when I do a project. Plan is to get the core box painted, starter box painted, get all that stuff done. I've got a unit of Highlanders on the way. They obviously fought at Cowpens, and then take it from there. But I am enjoying it at the moment. although we are playing some Hail Caesar at the club, so maybe I'll be having to paint, certainly throw some more paint on some Romans for my epic Hail Caesar. But anyway, that's where I am at the moment. Let us know how you're getting on. If you've got any questions about epic battles, drop them in the comment section. I'll be happy to answer them. And I look forward to chatting to you in another video. That's bye for now. Goodbye.